Hello and welcome everybody. I'm Dr. Catherine Horton, and with me is Wednesday Kennedy from Sydney, who will be reporting about the case of her mother. But just a moment.
And welcome everybody.
Okay, I just had to do the sound check in the background because we have, Wednesday and we have experienced very heavy cyber attacks and cyber sabotage as we were just talking before the show. So I'm extra cautious. But today is a very special episode that has been requested by a lot of people who have followed Wednesday's case. And we would like to start the entire introduction by giving everybody who's maybe new to this case and to what has happened, an introduction to how the whole thing started. And the whole thing started with Wednesday having a wonderful home care arrangement with her elderly parents that was just absolutely delightful. And it was a very, very happy time that was then brutally shattered by government services that present themselves as care facilities but are everything but, right? So what I really want to start with, so that you understand the pain and the agony and just the psychopathy of what we're going through, just look at what life was like and what life could be like right now, and hopefully will be very soon, right? But we need your help. So basically, this is what we want to get back to, okay? Let me share my screen and show you the video. I've also put it in the link below, so you will have much better quality if you click on the link below in the description on YouTube. And it's called Butterfly Girls, and it was made by Wednesday Kennedy from a compilation of the videos she made. So let me share my screen and show you. And in the opening sequence, what you see, hang on, here it is. What you see is Gwen Kennedy, Wednesday's mother here. And this video is 8 minutes long, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. I just would like to give you a quick sneak preview. And I really ask you to, after this show, please have a look, because only when you hear Gwen talk in her own, by herself, and you can see how happy she is and how healthy she is, only then do you actually really understand the case. So let's go. I'm going to put this on maximum. Here we go.
Best to know. You crack me up. You make people think that little laughs. You make people laugh, and we're famous, and always will. Yeah, we are. I got to say to everyone, they don't let me get out until I do.
Come on, we're going out. We're going out to watch dragonflies. Hopefully they're still there. Dragonflies.
Right.
Yeah, so let's go. Let's go.
Right.
Any lovers in the audience this evening?
Bye-bye.
Our lovers.
Bye.
Where's our lovers?
Our lovers. Go and say goodbye to Dad. Go and say goodbye to Dad.
Dance. It's all I wanna do, so won't you dance? I'm standing here with you, why won't you move? I'll get inside your groove, 'cause I'm on fire, fire, fire.
No, Dad's going this way. Say goodbye.
When you get
No, straight ahead.
if love is really good,
Yeah, give him a kiss goodbye.
Here's
Dad, he's at
fire,
the bottom. Yeah, go on.
fire, fire. All the lovers that have gone before.
She's so theatrical. You can really see the opera singer in the front, Dad. Haven't seen his wife. She's like cupping tea or glasses of water. Oh, like the Queen. She waves her horn. Let's go. You
Ooh, don't you see there's so much to me? Inside your heart, you know I'm free.
Shh,
Don't you see the feels getting higher, higher?
She's always with us, darling. We don't even have to channel it. Bye.
I want to hear you now.
Minnie, she's here. She's waiting for you. This way. I'll show you. We're going to have lunch with Minnie. I'll show you where she is. She's this way. Yes, we've got a lunch to give her. Yeah. See back. What did you say?
Your friends, we don't have any friends.
Really?
We don't have any friends. When we go around a club or some toby, we go there and they sort of met a lot of people that they didn't have any friends. Really? And that's what we do. And that's what we're doing.
We're helping people who have no friends.
Yes.
We're going to be their friends.
Yes. And they started to talk to us and come slide out of the words and things. Just come straight in there. Yes. And we did it. And we helped them without being shy, you know. And we just led to them. And we did too. Yes. We needed that a bit. And they were a bit. And that's great. That's great. And it was great. That was great. It was good to see it. Yes. That we were slipping into it. Yes. And it was a great. Yes. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, great. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Even if it didn't come to touring, and we went down the park, and there was people to talk to. Yes. And we sort of surprised that the people were talking to us. Old friends.
Old friends.
Old friends.
Oh.
No names.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they were talking to us.
And we slipped into them.
We slipped in
and
there.
did it to talk to them and slid into being shy, but to just say something.
To make them feel better.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
It was
to make them feel like they had
that's
friends.
what's the thing we can do.
Yes. We can. We can do that.
And it works.
We can be the friends for people with no friends.
That's
like me.
Yeah, that's it, love.
Thanks.
It's a great
It's a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
Oh man, I think if you can be the friend of people with no friends, your life is meaningful. Oh,
Yes.
I love you so
It
much.
lifts you up, doesn't it?
It lifts you up.
And you feel you lifted yourself.
Yes.
Yeah, with that.
You lift them and you lift yourself.
And you just on a little way, we see them just slips in.
Yes.
Slip in.
Just slip in, tell them
The
something
words come
nice.
out from them.
Yes, the words come out from them. Yes, because they just want someone to listen to them. Yes. Yes, we understand, don't we?
That's right.
We understand. That's in our blood. We understand.
You know, Dad, I know you've got that. You naturally got that.
Yes.
I've learned what you've got it natural.
Yes. You're so smart, you blow my mind. I can't leave you alone for 2 minutes, Mum, without you chasing down the handsome man.
I'm so sorry, but I saw your mom. I'm a little bit dirty because I talked to work.
You've got a handsome man.
You're pretty good.
You better That has been funny.
Yeah, okay, thank you very much.
So I wanted to show this because I absolutely love the scene how your mother just wandered off and said, "Some guy just wanted to perform." This is just absolutely, I absolutely love this scene. So hello Wednesday, and thank you so much for being here today and actually telling us about the case, because
So much hats on for Gwen. Love her hats. So anyone out there, put your hat on for Gwenny. She's gorgeous, isn't she?
she is
My God,
gorgeous.
what a beautiful life, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
This is
you
what I
know,
want people to first of all just notice how incredibly happy she is, how very mobile she is, and you were going on long walks with your mother, weren't you? I mean, this is
so
she was fast. She is extremely fast and agile and mobile. This is wonderful to see.
yeah,
So
yeah.
tell us what happened.
And even well, we had this beautiful home care, for 2 years, and I really thought, look, I knew my siblings were upset with the will, and I sort of knew they had this plan on getting mum and dad into a nursing home so they could change the will to something that was more of their liking. But I didn't know a lot of things. I didn't know. I just I could never imagine that they would have done what they would have done, which is basically wrench my parents out of 2 homes in 2 years, align with the lawyer Patrick Tudhope. I appealed to him when I knew my brother was bullying my dad. I appealed, I wrote to him and I rang him and I'm like, Paul's bullying dad, you got to help him. Look, I just had this whole other idea of lawyers. I mean, like what you said, in your last video about, oh gee, maybe we've got this idea about police officers that we got from these Hollywood movies or television shows from the 90s. Well, I had this idea about lawyers that I'd got from these Hollywood movies, or lawyers are nothing of what, I mean, my God, so I just thought, oh yeah, well, he's paid, dad's paying him and he's paid to do the right thing by, well, mum and dad really, because it was their money. They never got divorced. All of a sudden, Patrick Tudhope is my father's lawyer and my mother is what? My father's chattel. So the whole thing about wrenching them out of that beautiful home and, what an adventure we were having. And, mum had ambitions. You don't think that an old person has any ambitions, right? But, when you're at that stage of life where you don't have to, especially with something like Alzheimer's or dementias, to me, that's just going into that beautiful twilight zone of life, right? Where, 1 minute you're in the past, next minute you're in the present, and for sure, the next minute you're in the future. I mean, it's very fluid. It was amazing watching my mother at this stage of life. And you know what it reminded me of? It reminded me of this quote from a book called Women Who Run with the Wolves by Clarissa Pinkola Estes. And I begin my own book, right, 21st Century Showgirl, with this. But exactly the same thing happened to my mother at 85 years of age, you see, and because she became a youthful spirit. She went back to the past. She was a teenager again. She was beautiful, and I kept her beautiful, right? And I made her feel beautiful, and I wanted her to look beautiful in the eyes of her husband. And
okay, maybe she didn't have the brains anymore of the other old bags at the retirement village, but she was still the belle of Brighton Lodge. You know, she swan through those halls and she was still, you know, the most gorgeous. So she had something going for her, right? And that was her self-esteem, and that was her dignity, and that was her pride, and that was her identity. But anyway, when the youthful spirit marries the predator, she is captured or restrained during a time in her life that was meant to be an unfoldment. Instead of living freely, she begins to live falsely. The deceitful promise of the predator is that the woman will become queen in some way. But in fact, when in fact her murder is being planned. And, you know, my mother, you know, my parents had saved this money together. They were still alive. So many of the elders at the retirement village were so jealous. I think a lot of people were jealous of my parents' relationship. I even think my siblings were jealous of my parents' relationship, quite frankly. Jealousy is a very perverse emotion. Because they had such a deep relationship. They grew up together, same neighbourhood, you know, same culture, same church, same values, same ethics, really deep. The sort of relationship that my generation doesn't really understand. You know what I mean? Because what? You know, it's the 80s, we all changed our names, we all, you know, took on different identities. We all thought the world was our oyster and our roots were, you know, being up to. My parents were the opposite. And at the end, when they could no longer fight, they were ripped apart by these people that wanted their money. And unfortunately, some of those people were their children. So, you know, when I look back at that, because I tell you, they've left me with so much grief, all right? There's so much grief. There's so much grief to talk about, you know? But I'm also really aware, and I think the enemy's really aware too, that, you know, in doom you walk alone. Like, nobody wants to enter a totally hopeless situation where they can't see any hope, you know. And so, you know, nobody's going to come, you know, there with you. So, you know, this level of targeting and asset stripping at the end of one's life, you don't have any witnesses for, you know, your best friends are all dead, you know, mum's brothers, like, who used to protect her, they're dead, you know. I remember in 2013, Dad coming and telling me that his best friend Tom was dead. And he had a little weep, right? Because that was the guy that he could ring up and go, I'm hurting, or this is happening, and maybe get some advice from Tom. Tom was gone. So the older you live, you know, the more you're maybe true, you know, your friends drop off, everybody drops off, and you have a family. They had 5 children. It's our job to take care of us, you know, and to take care of them, right? Not they took care of us, and they really did. They gave us a house, a solid house we could always come back to. You know, they weren't the sort of parents that, you know, I mean, some parents, you know, they raise you and then you're off on your own and they go and move country. They stayed in the city to be close to us, to give us space. So for them to have their home wrenched out of them, it was just unreal. And then it just got worse and worse. And so what happened was, you know, because, look, I'm a videographer. It's not like I just picked up the camera when that happened. I've been carrying that camera since, you know, 2000 in New York, you know. I recorded the streets of New York, everybody's stories after September 11th. I've come back. I've always had a real interest in people's stories. I love people like Studs Terkel, who went around telling other people's stories. I did Wonderworld in the 80s. That was other people's stories. You know, and now, oh, wow, I had this brilliant opportunity to not only care for my parents, but to hear their stories, you know, and they didn't have to play the parents anymore. They could tell me all their secrets and, you know, they could tell me their naughtiness when they were young. And it was just brilliant. It was just brilliant. It was the most brilliant friendship. And I really think that that's another thing too, that they wanted to split that up. They didn't want us telling each other those stories. So, you know, yeah, they got mum into the nursing home, mum and dad. They used Dad's hospitalisation. So really, I've just spent over 2 years fighting to get guardianship for my mother, 4 NCAT tribunals, 7 directives hearings at the Supreme Court. It went from the common law court to the equity court. What a nightmare. And then Chief Justice Ward threw it out. And I'll go into a little bit more detail about that in a minute. But when she threw it out, you know, she gave me 2 options: go to protective or go back to NCAT. Now, I didn't want to go back to NCAT. You know, that's like a cat going back to drink its own vomit. You know what I mean? Like, but I thought, okay, you know, I mean, look, I'll do it. I knew they were going to humiliate me. I knew that the things that my siblings wouldn't put on affidavit, they were going to bring up again. And so it's just a humiliation. It's just a ritual of humiliation and hurt, the NCAT Tribunal. Anyone can say whatever they want. It's like a super court. It's like a star chamber. Anyone can say whatever they want. They don't need evidence. It's mob rules. It's got nothing to do with justice. It's got nothing to do with the elder and the best interest of the elder or anything that they claim on their website. It's got nothing to do with any of that. So I knew all this, but I thought, okay, I'm going to give them one more chance, you know. And this time, you know, I was prepared. You know, look, in the first NCAT tribunal, it was totally set up, and the transcripts reveal that. I bought those transcripts, the audio transcripts. I made YouTube videos out of that to show that. The Department of Justice, you know, wrote to me because my sister told them that I'd done that and said, if I don't take them down, they'll get the Crown solicitor onto me. So, you know, for reporting on them, I got threatened with the Crown solicitor. I didn't take them down. I have the right to report criminal activity, especially when that criminal activity involves my beloved parents. So, no, I'm not taking it down. But then they sent in my brother. They've been using my brother as a sort of enforcer, intimidator. So, and they've all been playing tag team, right? My siblings, okay, it started with my siblings, lawyer Patrick Tutor, who then obviously has these connections with the Catholic Church, with the government, with the justice system. And I can, you know, go into that a bit later or not. I mean, these people bore the shit out of me. I hate talking about them. You know what I mean? They force you to talk about them, you know. In any other situation, I go, okay, see ya, you know. But they've kidnapped and asset stripped my parents. I'm not in a position to do that. So until some justice is done, you know, even though every time I report, I sort of feel too that maybe the reason why NCAT, you know, kept Mum in the hands of the public guardian, even though she didn't want Mum anymore, and kept my brother as financial management, was possibly a bit of a punishment for the video. Because I sent them a copy of your last video that got over 10,000 views, right? Where you were asking people to support me. And we got one guy. Yeah, one guy turned up. We got 4 witnesses, and he was great. Yeah, he was great. And he was very, you know, he had a lot of protocol. He was very professional. He stood at the back. He didn't come for a smoke with us, you know, during the break or whatever. He was like, no, I'm just here as a witness. And I was like, how'd you find us? Dr. Catherine Horton. Dr. Catherine Horton? Right? Well, we were all like, oh, Dr. Catherine Horton. You know, so we sort of loved him. And, I like, I was, but, you know, that sort of goes to show the statistics. 10,000 people, one might turn up. So, but the other 4 who were there were all witnesses to my mother's abuse, right? They'd all seen her drugged. They'd all seen her neglect. They all had stories. They had testimonies. And, well, 3 of them did anyway. And the 4th, this same thing has happened to his parents with the nursing home system and the public trustee. And he just put on a suit to be there because he thought he might have a chance to tell his story, which he didn't. His name was Ray. I really appreciate him turning up too. It's a terrible building to turn up to. Nobody wants to go to that part of town, to that building. So anybody who actually, you know, makes that effort, you know, to come, like, you know, I am forever grateful to. But it doesn't matter what you do. Like, look, when they took Mum, I just said, okay, whatever you want. You know, like, I just wanted Mum to be safe and back. And so I went and studied with, you know, my advocate at the time, Tony, looking after his mum, Lily Joseph. She's 96, bedridden. She's living proof. You don't have to go to a home. We can all be looked after in our bed to the very end. There's home care services. There's things you can set up. There's, you know, home is always the best place. But what they're doing in Australia now, and it's a real brainwashing, it's part of the asset stripping, and my siblings said this during the tribunal. Oh, I don't have the skills. Rubbish. You know, those people in there, they've got no skills. You know what I mean? They've what, had 6 weeks training somewhere. And so I've got quite sophisticated skills. And so what? I'm my mother's daughter. Nobody can take care of my mother better than I can, right? But no. They've set up the system so you put your parents in that nursing home and the system will allow you to get your little bit of their money as long as you cast, other people get their little bit. So they're casting lots, the elders' assets. And, I get sort of choked up when I think about the court system and everything. It's like, maybe I don't want to talk about that today, what actually happened, because it's so bad. I'm actually still getting over the shock of that. I'm getting over the shock of what was done, of the fact that after all the evidence I put forth of my mother's abuse, the fact that I'd studied for 6 months with the elderly Lily Joseph, so I would know how to look after my mother to the end of life, doesn't matter how debilitated she gets. I talked about my mother's needs. We all gave really strong testimonies and witness testimonies. And I just think, if after that they left her, and the public guardian didn't want Mum anymore, they washed their hands of it. So even my brother said during the tribunal, oh, if Wednesday's the only horse in the race, I should have guardianship too. And what I realised was, actually, it's the NCAT Tribunal that's creating this. The public guardian's part of it, but the public guardian pulled out. The NCAT Tribunal put the public guardian back as my mother's guardian over a family member who's never hurt her, who's only proven, that I gave her brilliant home care. I'm not the one fighting for the money. All I'm fighting for is to bring my mother back home, and that's better, Mum's paying a lot. They've got a $725,000 bond on her, and she pays $600 a week on top of that. For what? Really, it's a 1-star service, right? So, but the system is set up that the government's working in with the nursing home system in this situation. It's Catholic healthcare and Holy Spirit Croydon, and then they're using my siblings and the sort of greed and jealousy and dysfunction in the family to go, oh, well, Trish and Paul are very happy where your mother is. Well, yeah, they're very happy because they worked with Patrick Tudhope to change the will 4 months after my father was in custody at the Holy Spirit Croydon. And I'm pointing this way because it's just over there. It's five minutes away, right? And this place was bought so I could do home care. And then immediately my siblings came in to put my mother into the nursing home. So just the cruelty, you know, it's just been unbelievable cruelty from everybody involved. Everybody's turning a blind eye to everybody else's crimes. But basically we're looking at elder trafficking, asset stripping, fraud, 3 documents my siblings have been created in my father's name since he was put under, well, he's, rest in peace, he's gone now. But since he was put under the roof of the Holy Spirit Croydon, 3 documents, a letter, supposedly written by Dad, saying that, and put into the NCAT Tribunal on the 6th of December 2017, saying that he didn't want Mum to be living with me. Dad didn't write that letter. My brother and sister wrote that letter, right? Even the signature's forged. A stat deck saying I didn't do the Petersham renovations. Petersham was the flat that my parents left me. And we sold that to get this, to be close to do home care. Well, I've got hours of video because with my dad and my mum, and this was really part of the way that I cared for them, you know, I never put forward any idea that I made them decide on that day. I'd put forward ideas and I'd let them think on it. When Dad and I decided to renovate the Petersham place, to sell it, I came back. I'd get the video and I'd video the work that I did that day, and I'd come home and I'd show him. So my dad was up with everything that I did. I've probably got about 100 hours of video of the renovation, yet my brother can stand up at the NCAT Tribunal, say that I didn't do that renovation, that actually I stole that money, I misappropriated that money from that renovation, and then write a stat deck in Dad's name saying that. Now, Dad didn't write that because that's not true, and Dad was never a liar. So on the same day that the fraudulent will was written under the roof of the Holy Spirit Croydon, 23rd of August 2017, the fraudulent stat deck was written under the roof of the Holy Spirit Croydon. And the will says that my father lives in his home, which was next door at the Brighton Lodge Retirement Village. The stat deck says that my father lives in the Holy Spirit Croydon. Both of them are witnessed by lawyer Jodie Taylor from Solomon Tudhope Lawyers in Parnell Street, Strathfield. So where does he live, Jodie Taylor? Does Dad live in, you know, on that day, was it, you know, you've got 2 different documents you got my father to sign. One says he lives here and the other one says he lives there, right? Because one's the will and the other one's for the NCAT Tribunal. Disgusting, you know? And the thing is, what these people did to me was because they just keep punching you in the head from either side, shocking you, my brother letting himself in, threatening phone calls, Catholic Healthcare threatening me with letters, Catholic Healthcare standing behind that Nazi brother of mine who's destroyed me and my parents. So, and the public guardian. I mean, honestly, that NCAT Tribunal, like you wouldn't believe, we actually bothered to turn up. But Paul, right, and Joe Butler, oh, well, he calls it Joanne Butler, they were on the other end of the telephone. And when they get on, Paul says, oh, yes, you know, Joe and I, we've just been having a little chat, you know, beforehand. So him and the public guardian have already had chatty poos before they get on, right? So they're on the same team. And then she recommends him. Oh, I think Paul should be guardian. And that's because he's covered up the drugging. Because when I said Mum's been drugged, and the public guardian said, no, she's not. And Paul's like, utter nonsense. Well, because I put in to the ACCC harass her 6 months to get a report on whether my mother was being drugged or not. Well, of course, yes, she was, wasn't she? Risperidone, right? An antipsychotic, and she wasn't psychotic. So they're all covering for each other. They're all lying. And, you know, in the Supreme Court, I wanted that original transcript where it's just so obvious. It's just been so set up to put mum in the hands of the public guardian, separated from her husband. So obvious. That first transcript in the common law court, Register Bradford, I requested, you know, the court pay for that transcript, right? And then he said, yes, he ordered it. Then, but in between, we get transferred to the equity court. And then Register Walton is then working with the Crown barrister, and she doesn't think the government should pay for it. I should pay for it, you know. And that's $1,000. And of course, I don't have the money to pay for it. So no transcript. So they're just, if you listen to the transcript, if you actually read the transcripts from all of these NCAT tribunals, all you would see is corruption, 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 set up, rigged to the max. That's all you see. They don't want that shown, right? And if you don't have money.
Yeah, just one question, because I think I just you know, maybe I misunderstood. What cost $1,000? The transcript or the court fee? Sorry, I was
transcript of the NCAT tribunal. Yeah, so say for example, in the first transcript, you can hear, or in the first audio, because I bought the audio from them for $49, and then I sort of cut it together to video and I put on YouTube. So I wasn't getting help from anyone else, you know. And I want to expose it. This is crazy. This is so crazy corrupt. They're just selling off my parents and they're getting away with it, right?
Yeah.
So, but, and I also transcribed part of it myself. But of course, you know, I'm a party, so my transcription isn't going to be worth anything. So you've got to send it into this place called, I don't know, Ozscribe or something, and they'll transcribe it for you for $1,000. But that's a lot of moolah, right? And anyway, so that, but in the first one, you can hear Paul whispering to that member, the public guardian. So they've already arranged. I was the one who went for guardianship for my mother to rescue her from the nursing home. This is the first tribunal in what was that, July 21st, 2017. And then I get there and there's Patrick Tudor, the lawyer, there's Paul Marsh, there's lawyers of Catholic Healthcare on the other end of the telephone. There's Kylie, Mum should be so lucky, Kylie Taylor, another Taylor. She's the public guardian, she's already with her little net on the other end of the phone ready to take Mum, because Paul and Patrick Tudor and Trish have set this up to sell off their own mother. So, like, it's so wacko. It's so wacko. You can never imagine it, right?
Absolutely.
I couldn't imagine it until it happened.
So one of the things I would like people to understand, because in the background I pulled up a couple of references that people need to get their head around, because, you know, in this case, just from the tip of the iceberg you presented, the criminality is astounding. I mean, it is just shocking. And it's one exactly the level of criminality that we had in Nazi Germany. It is exactly the same. And that's when the court, or the court becomes a shell, and the people operating the court don't give a damn about the rule of law anymore. They are just placed there by a criminal network to execute the business plans of the wider criminal network. And then they just don't give a damn. So this is literally Nazi Germany level criminality. And in every system that gets captured, it goes through different phases. So first, just a few individuals who are corrupt, then predominantly corrupt individuals, and then eventually you just have corrupt individuals and the court goes absolutely bonkers. But what I want people to understand is that this happens in every natural court. by naturally, any system that is particularly old or particularly big will end up with psychopaths at the top, right? Unless it refreshes itself at the top faster, then the psychopaths can actually get there. But what I want people to understand is that the NCAT tribunal you're talking about is part of a cluster of so-called super courts. And what these super courts are being set up to be is a special entity removed from all the normal courts. At the moment, you kind of, you're not allowed to enter the normal courts. You're put into the NCAT stream, and the NCAT has still a connection to the Supreme Court that they're trying to cap. They want to be a parallel system where you can be just tortured and raped and murdered Nazi style. And that's what the Nazis did as well. So they took over the courts, and then they set up their own stream, and in the end they did away with courts, so they could just basically load people in the thousands, and cut them off or drag them out of the house and kill them in a local barn, right? But this has been duplicated everywhere around the world, and you can see this. So this is the Nazi program. But I pulled up a reference that people should look into, where it one-on-one says exactly what you said. I was trying to find the previous reference we found to the where it actually states that the NCAT is a super tribunal. It was a very critical paper by a lawyer, but unfortunately I don't have it on my laptop now because the old laptop got hacked and I couldn't find it quick enough. But look what I found just by typing into the search NCAT, so NCAT and super tribunal. I found a link to a website by a law firm saying NCAT, is it so super, right? And it says it's not a bird and it's not a plane, it's a super tribunal. Okay, so
oh my God.
Yeah, listen to this, Australians. On the 1st of January 2014, the New South Wales Civil and Administrative Tribunal will be established and taken over from over 20 existing New South Wales tribunals. The Consumer Trade and Tenancy Tribunal will be abolished and its work transferred to NCAT. Okay, so this super tribunal is hoovering up all the other courts, just like the Nazis did, right? So eventually you end up with the Gestapo court, right? But I'm not going to go through the whole thing, but I want to pull out a couple of things, okay? Because it also said something about lawyers, all right? So hang on, I think it was somewhere here. Hang on. At some point, it was talking about. Okay, so yes, this is important. So-called super tribunals already operate in Victoria, Queensland, and Western Australia. In other words, these are Nazi courts that are cropping up like mushrooms across your country, and you don't even know about it. So you are running around in your head with this concept that you've got the old legal system, but you do not, because these criminals are taking over. Okay. And also, I point you to another crown colony, namely the United States, where they established the so-called vaccines court. Now, why the fuck do you need a separate court for vaccines? Well, the reason you need that is because vaccines are part of the organized crime cartels program to brain mutilate your children and to chip them. So to be able to pull that off, they have to pull out of the normal courts, set up their own separate Nazi stream. And then the Nazi stream works exactly as you described, that you have public collusion between a litigant, namely your brother, whispering even audibly on the transcript, instructions of how the criminality should be pulled off. Okay. Now, the other thing also, okay, there are new rules on legal representation, costs and appeals, enforcement and practice and procedure. Why the fuck do you need new rules on legal representation? Well, it's because they don't want you to have legal representation, okay? And here, for example, it says a new claim arising on or after 1st of January 2014 must be filed in NCAT, and new NCAT rules will apply. Some of these include a party will not automatically be entitled to legal representation.
Oh my God.
Well,
yes, and that was my mother. Exactly. I know. Yeah. Oh yeah. If we deem fit. I mean, they just change the rules as they go along because, you know, with the first one, I'm like, do I need a lawyer for this? Oh, no, you don't need a lawyer. So my siblings turn up with Patrick Tudo, Paul Marsh, Catholic healthcare lawyers, which I have actual documentation of them lining up in the background because they're all brazen enough to put their paperwork in. This is how we're going to treat these, you know, elders. I mean, and we'll never, you know, the courts aren't going to, who's going to pull us up about it? I can tell you nobody, because I have written to everyone. I've written to every government department. I've written to the aged care minister, Attorney General, state and federal, Prime Minister 3 times. Every single, the ombuds, like the local member, like there is nobody I've not written to and appealed to, you know, in regards to what's going on with parents. And they all wipe their hands of it and they'll send you back to the next person. You know, they'll send you to, say, for example, seniors' rights. Now, seniors' rights only looks after seniors who still have their own mental faculties, and they won't talk to any advocates or anyone else. So what do you need them for? If you've got your own faculties and you're completely empowered or whatever, what do you need that group for? You need that group when you've lost your power, right? Like, you know, honestly, every single group, the Aged Care Complaints Commission, that's now changed their name to the, what are they called, the Age, they probably changed their name so they won't get sued, right? Aged Care Quality Complaints Commissioner now. Well, it doesn't matter what their name is, they're hopeless. You know, you put in your complaint, they announce themselves. I mean, do the police announce themselves before they do a raid? Oh, we're all coming, you know, bring out the bloody Tupperware. Well, that's what the Aged Care Complaints Commission does, right? So, of course, everybody, you know, and I also complained to them about my father. Well, of course, my brother was there when they turned up. So they didn't get to have a chance to talk to my father by himself. They didn't want a chance to talk to my father by himself. They're a cover organisation. They're useless, right? How much taxpayer money is going into this? It's not saving our elders, I can tell you. So that all of these so-called elder assisting departments, they need to be got rid of. The NCAT Tribunal needs to be abolished. It's a Nazi Star Chamber tribunal. It needs to be abolished. It's destroying lives. The Office of the Public Guardian, what a joke. Do you know they are only obliged to see their client once a year? Once a year, right? So they don't know anything about the people that they're signing off on medication for, all of this. I am absolutely convinced because, you know, Christy and I hammered them for, we asked for it in the tribunal and then we rang up afterwards and reinforced that, okay, we've got a tribunal now, so I want mum's toxology, blood tests, you know, weight, full nutrition report. I want a full report, right? Now, of course they didn't come up with any of that. Of course they didn't come up with any of that because I believe that my mother is under a clinical trial, right? And I believe that my sister, Trish, probably signed off on it, right? These are secret. They don't have to tell me. They don't have to tell anyone. And they go, oh, it's all about the privacy of the individual. Well, the individual had a whole lot of privacy before you wrenched them into an institution and started, you know, clinically testing them and detaching them from the people who really care about them. No. My mother is now in the public interest. And just like she said in that first clip, you know, that you showed in the beginning, she knew if she didn't want to be disappeared and killed off, she had to become famous. She knew it. And she gave me permission. She said to me, you write a book with me because Trisha's going to write a bad book about me. I said, why don't we make a movie, Mum? Then you can be in it. As it turned out, we've written a book and made a movie, right? I said, let's call it How to Speak Alzheimer's. So we were making a movie and she was a star and she loved that, right? Mum knew what they were going to do before I did. She told me, she gave me all her instructions. She said, don't you let them disappear me. She said, put them in the room. She said, don't let the crooks get away with it. She said, like, she just gave me all of the instructions. There's nothing I'm doing that my mother hasn't told me to do. Nothing, not one single thing, right? But you know what? I just feel like for me and for Mum now, Australia is a concentration camp. She's being tortured in there, and I can tell you I spent 12 hours a day there. I'll show you those clips again, you know, the ones my brother hasn't had deleted or blown up on my computer. So I've got the evidence for it. They can't get me on defamation. She is in a living hell. I'm attached to my mother deeply. Just because my siblings aren't, are they the normals, are they? And I'm the weirdo because I'm attached to my mother and they're detached, they're normal. Like, oh really? I'm deeply attached to my mother. I was also very bonded with her in a care-for relationship. I told that Jill Moir, what's her name? Gillian Moir, Moir. I can barely speak about her. She's so treacherous. Because I really think if she could come to that conclusion at the end of the testimonies that I gave and that we all gave, you know, and I told her, like, they always knew, the NCAT, that if they left Mum in there, I wouldn't see Mum because they won't let me in unless I've done all my YouTube video clips and say that everything that they've done against my mother is a lie. I was just delusional. Well, I'm not going to do that. That's not what my mother wants me to do, right? No way. My mother was a woman of principle and she would suffer for principle, right? So I'm not going to do that. And why are they using my mother for blackmail and extortion, right? It's got nothing to, like, and okay, if they don't want me in there because they don't want me maybe videoing the abuse of the other residents. I've seen residents drop dead there and what, you know, okay. I've seen a lot of things. They know it. They don't want me shooting that. Well, let me take my mother out and bring her home and care for her, right? They won't even let me take her out during the day. That means they're doing clinical testing on her, right? And I've had 2 other nurses have a look at her, right? Trained professionals, and say, yes, she's drugged. And this was even before they'd admitted to drugging her. So I think my mother's undergone sexual abuse. I know she's undergone physical abuse. She's open to abuse all the time. There's too many men in that ward. My siblings, after taking the money from her, don't give her hairdressing, don't give her lovely layers, dignity, lovely things that she loved. And, you know, I just loved making my mother feel beautiful, you know. If you look at a lot of the videos, it's like, you know, when you see those mothers with their little babies and the mothers always look really wrecked and the babies always look just so divine, you know, they've just got the best care, the best frock, you know, they smell like rose petals and the mother looks like she, you know, hasn't slept for a week, probably hasn't showered for 3 days and her hair's all like this. Well, I was a bit like that with Mum in a way because I didn't care about how I looked. I just wanted her to be gorgeous, you know, and she knew it, you know, and they took so much. They just destroyed our lives, you know, and then lied about it. And you know what they said about me, you know. So, but that's second to what's happening with Mum. So, okay, so darling, like, we got to, like, if you could ask your people if they could help. And thank you to your friends who've helped, and thank you to you. Thank you to the computer. My God, you saved my life. Thank you for the deadlock. My God, you saved my life. And I wouldn't even be really talking here really without that. But, like, I've got to take Mum's. Okay, so a lot of this is still happening. They're attacking me from all sides. After they gave the order out to keep Mum there in the hand of the public guardian, Patrick Tudhope, the lawyer, basically sends me a letter same day, 2nd of May, saying that he's the executor now, and he's going to charge me a market rent for the flat that my parents get, that should now be in my mother's hands, right? Because she's not my father's chattel, and they had in their original will that everything would be passed to her. So it got not me, and you know, and not my siblings. My mother's still alive. They're treating her like the living dead, like a dead entity, right? But what happened was, because I was so focused on the guardianship, and I thought I had, you know, at least 6 months to you know, put my claim in, he had probate passed. So now he's basically threatening to charge me a market rent or sell this place out from under me. So there's a bit of pressure, right? But you know what my main focus still is? Get my mother out, right? My mother has to be released. You know, so I'm taking it back to court, right? And I don't know, I'm thinking maybe the High Court this time. You know, I was thinking, yeah, the Supreme Court was such a major disappointment. Like, I just have really no faith, to be honest, in the judicial system. But I was thinking, at least the High Court, they have to deal with constitution, right? I mean, you know, that's their jurisdiction, isn't it? You know, the Constitution, and so I need the money to take Mum's case to the High Court. If she dies in there, oh my God, like, I'm just so scared. You know, she's going to die in there, right? Feeling abandoned, like they won't let me in now. She doesn't know that I haven't abandoned her. So anyway, I got to take the case to the Supreme Court, you know, and I am going to need a lawyer for that. And well, I just sort of need as much help as I can get, because yeah, it's not a good situation, you know.
Absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I want people to understand, and this is why I was pointing to the legal firm, is I want people to understand that it's not even just about your mother or even about elderly trafficking, because the Nazis started with the vulnerable. They started with the disabled people, also with the old elderly. Back then, in Nazi Germany, they could only get the elderly who were already in care homes. They couldn't get the population, because it was a tradition that you cared for your mother in your own home. You know, they had to do brainwash for us to even give our parents up to, I would never do that, but to these care facilities. The other thing that people should realize is that the concept of a care facility comes from Nazi Germany when it was popularized, and the German word for care is Betreuung, and the Germans invented the word Betreuung for this concept. So before that, the concept of Betreuung did not exist. It did not exist. That concept that you would give yourself to a complete stranger and he would just rule over you and take care of you.
Yes.
Anybody in the 1930s and 20s and at the end of the Victorian time knew that that was a bad idea, right? I mean, most people move out of their parents' house because our parents bless them, right? We don't want them to rule over our lives. Well, you know, our parents just have their best intentions at heart. But a foreigner, or sorry, not a foreigner, I mean, an external party, somebody foreign to your family, right, will not have the same intentions. And as you said, actually, that care home happens to be staffed full of foreigners, because they are just, they use immigrants from around the world. And you also pointed out, which is, I think, is very important. Pardon? You know, the other thing I think is very
I just said they do that.
Yeah, I think we're getting delayed. The audio is getting harassed on one end. But the other thing that I think is very important is that I got a chance to talk to some of your witnesses, And they told me that when they went to visit your mother, because you're not allowed in. I mean, what pathological situation are we in when you're not allowed to see your mother when you have done nothing wrong? You don't have criminal charges, you never harmed her, and somebody else can come in to your private family and say, oh no, you're not allowed to see your mother. We're taking her now, we're putting her into a Nazi-style concentration camp, and you're not allowed to see her. But those people who went to see her, they said that there was nobody in the entire building taking care of all these people. They were locked up because they couldn't get out. Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So they had to basically wait for somebody to arrive and let them out of the building, because the door closed behind them, and without the access codes, you don't get out. But there was nobody in the building, no staff who could let them out. So what this is that they are setting up these facilities. And it is basically, and you also pointed out that where your mother, she has purposely been placed on a ward with men. And these men are, demented. Some of them have, because of whatever is being maybe done to them, because there's also neurotech experimentation, I would guess, are hypersexualized, maybe as part of their dementia. But, you said that you're scared for your mom to be raped. And one guy, we already reported that, one guy kept following her into her room, right? And tried to pull her out of the bed one night, so that her entire arm ended up bruised and swollen. So this is an absolute Nazi nightmare that has been set up. But I want people to understand what it looks like on the ground. I want them to understand the legal mechanism of these super tribunals, these Star Chamber Nazi-style Gestapo tribunals that have been set up in Australia. That's the mechanism, okay? It's already all across Australia. And I also want to understand those people who maybe don't have elderly parents, that this will hit you, because now that they have these super tribunals, all they have to do is give these super tribunals new functions, like, okay, it will also become a vaccine court, like in the other crown colony, the USA. And then you have no say over your children. And if you don't allow them to be brain chipped with brain chipping and neurotechnology hook up to AI, which will masquerade as some, piffling vaccine, if you don't agree to that, your children will be dragged off Nazi style. And that's already being prepared in New York, where New York banned unvaccinated children from the public roads, right? On public places.
When did that happen?
This is very, very recent.
How long ago did that happen?
So this was, they used I think the measles outbreak, and I'm sorry, measles is, okay, it can have side effects, but I know measles still from back home. I had measles and everybody else had measles where I was from. And it was just something that you had as a child, and you got through it, and through that you got lifelong immunity, right? And it was just something that was normal. It was just absolutely common.
Yeah, I know.
Childhood.
Everyone had measles at some point or another.
At some point, and you just had it,
It's
and
like
then you exactly. Now, the thing is that there are really life-threatening diseases that are very, very prominent. For example, tetanus is one of them. Once you get tetanus, you're fucked and you will die in the most horrific way. Now, you need vaccines for that, but what people need to understand is they are weaponizing stuff that we need. They are using vaccines we need to weaponize them to brain chip people. They are weaponizing courts, which we also need. I'm sorry, you can't go through life with a society of millions of people and ensure that some asshole will not, try to get your stuff. This is what we need the police and the courts for. But they are weaponizing the things that we need. The other thing I want to get into everybody's head who's listening now, the police didn't help you at all. You had housebreaking. Your brother, a known individual.
I know, man. I'm still waiting for help. I just, it's come on, boys. You're going to do something. I mean, like, look, 4 days before my Supreme Court guardianship hearing, I received in the mail this envelope addressed to me from the Supreme Court in New South Wales. What was in that envelope? A malicious USB stick that blew up my computer. Now, that's a federal offence. And so, okay, maybe they don't care about my brother coming to the door and threatening to slit my throat and chop me up. No big deal. Maybe they want me to slit chopped up. I mean, or they just don't care or whatever. Maybe they don't care about him coming into my place on the night of my father's funeral and emptying my haversack of all contents, right? So things like the the letter that I put in, because there's just so many elements to this case, right? You know, this was the letter that I put into the coroner's court requesting an autopsy on on the 7th of January, requesting an autopsy on my father's body because he died under suspicious circumstances. Nothing happened there. The Holy Spirit Queen had obligation. Any nursing home, any place where someone's in custody, that they have an obligation to inform the police if somebody dies in their custody, and the coroner. Now, these people don't have to follow any rules whatsoever. Me, I've been jumping through hoop after hoop after hoop, right? I'm literally down to the, there's holes in my shoes because all of my money has gone toward, and for what? They make a fool out of me. My brother, after everything they said about me at NCAT, of course, they just didn't accept. He just didn't accept the my summons to him, right? But what did he write? He wrote, and this just shows his lack of respect, really. Was it this one that he wrote? Comedy. He wrote comedy on the back of it, like, oh yeah. He sends it back to me, and it's like, this is comedy, right? So this is, my summons, going for guardianship for Mum. All of these he sent back, right? He just sent them back. So they didn't put anything that they said about me in the Super Tribunal on affidavit in the Supreme Court. They just send them back, and they'd be allowed to do that. And the public guardian, she wouldn't accept my summons either, And Register Bradford said, oh, well, I'd like to see, Sylvia Heidenreich, the public guardian here at the next here. She didn't have to come. The Crown solicitor, the Crown barrister, the bigwig turned up for her, just stood in for her. She doesn't, they can literally get away with murder. They don't have to stand trial. And I just think, wow, did my mother pay for the Crown solicitor, like $4,000 a day or something? Did my mother pay for that, for the woman who actually was working against her? Because my mother was not given a lawyer in any of this. It's my mother's money too. Why didn't my mother have a lawyer? Like, it's really, really bad what's happened. And it's so sexist. And it's real sort of, it's like they've tried to redefine my parents' relationship as master-slave, right? Like it was father's money and he just, shared it with mother, by the benevolent. Look, he was great. My father's great. He was a great breadwinner, fantastic man. But, Mum was the one who was good with the money. She was the one who put out in all the assets and the shares and if there is any money, it's actually because of Mum. And Dad knows that. He was great with the words. He was a wordsmith. She was great with the money. They have written her out of her own bank accounts, her own money. And here's what's most painful. While they were treating her like a demented old fool, she knew everything they were doing. And I got that on video. She knew everything they were doing. And she's gone through agony. My mother has gone through the agony of saints, right? So, like apart from the fine, I mean, it's just intention to murder. That's all it is. But the torture involved, like I can't tell, like I'm in a full, just from the torture of feeling what my mother's gone through and going through and not being able to see her and going through all of this for nothing. And I've got to start again now. But it's like, it takes a toll. Like I'm in pain. It gets into your bones, and they know this, because you can't take that much extended stress and grief and injustice with no resolve without it coming out without it, and that's what they've done to Mum. They've just deteriorated her on every level, to the max. So, I just like, and I'm so tired. You know what I mean? I'm so tired. And I just got to get a drink. I'm so tired as well, you know, because it's been over. Well, it wasn't just the 2 years after she got kidnapped. It was the 2 years of like keeping the home care afloat. So it was dodge and weaving my siblings and you know. But anyway, that was fun, right? That was at least fun, and you know, we had half a chance, you know. That was before the concentration camp. And then there was the 2 years before that where I was preparing, because we really have to open a conversation about Alzheimer's, dementias, this stage of life. They're medicalising it. They're pathologizing old age. They're making it ugly. They're making old people as something that should be hidden. Oh, you're ugly. Ugly now. Go away. We're going to hide you away. I feel when I see old people out on the street, I'm like, oh my God, the elder catcher's going to come and get you. Like, you know, like, I feel like going up and going, do you have someone to take care of you? Honestly, they're so vulnerable. So, I mean, it is really scary. If this could happen to my parents, who prepared so well for the future, I mean, they were really sensible, conservative people and who really prepared, right? And this could happen to them. I tell you, nobody is safe, you know. So, and just the whole legal, like, you know, I was going to talk to you about, and maybe I'll talk to you next time we meet about that, because I'm just a little bit too traumatized now to talk about, but they're important details about what happened in those court cases, and you know, just how rigged it was. You know, I'd like to talk. I'd like to talk that with you, because I feel like that's really important information. But see, that's the other thing they do. They just sort of traumatize you from so many levels. They sort of bash you down that for a while. I mean, really, after that last tribunal, I was just mute. I just couldn't believe that they did what they did, right? Yeah, sure, it's not over. You know, while my mother is alive, every minute of my day is fighting for her release, right? The idea that she would die in that hellhole is too painful, right? So I just have to get back on the horse again. And yeah, I do need money for a court case, and I do need to start, you know, well, I was, thinking of revenue streams to get that money in and stuff as well. And I wanted to tell your people, I've got a couple of books if they want to buy it. I get, this is a good read, 21st Century Showgirl, and really it's about my own trafficking. Really, it's about my own trafficking. It's a great read. It's about 300 pages. So I think it's about $25, 320, but it's good value. I earn $10 out of every book, right? And if you really want to know, I didn't know what I was writing when I wrote this, right? Because I sort of wrote it over a really long period. Like, it's got stories from different sort of eras and stuff. And then I put it together when I was trying to work out what happened to me. Like, what happened? They came down on me and so I self-published this. They came down on me very hard, you know, the powers afterwards. I think perhaps that's part of the reason why I don't know. I think it's multi-generational and probably have happened anyway, you know. But anyway, it's a good read. And I get $10 out of every book.
Can you hear me? Just briefly,
Say that
because
again?
your audio was. Can you hear me? Because your audio was truncated, and it was exactly the last two sentences that you said. You showed your book, and then you said something that they wanted censored. So the audio started being cut out using an algorithm I now recognize, because it works a particular way to make it sound like it's actually, you know, a fault on the line, but it's not. I've now heard it so many times I recognize the algorithm. So can you just say it again, what you just said? It was something to do with your book. You said you self-published.
Okay. Well, yes, it's you can buy it on lulu.com, and it's called 21st Century Showgirl. It's even though I call it a magical realist memoir, and I've pretty much changed everyone's name, so it's not really whistleblowing, but it's definitely about this particular trafficking network, really, and it is about the Monarch programming, but it's sort of an insider view before I actually knew what I was talking about. And I call it a magical realist memoir, but I suppose you could call it a mind control realist memoir, But I started writing this when I came back from New York in 2006, and I finished it and launched it in 2009 on MySpace, and I had a couple of real life book launches, but I got really targeted heavily. So I just, it's just there. But, I'm thinking now about sort of trying to get sort of revenue to take Mum's case to court. And I thought, well, I'll give the book a bit of because I earn about $10 out of every book. And I've got another book that I wrote when I went to Queensland when I came back in 2009, and it's called the MySpace Diaries. And what happened was I was blogging, because there was all this defamation around me and people saying this and that about me. And so I was just literally like keeping my hands on the table. So I was just sort of blogging. So my life was like totally everyone knew my life, right? And then, and I had quite a, things have changed a lot. But in those days I had quite a popular blog. And so people would come and have comments and we'd have conversations. And so I thought that I call it the MySpace Diary, Stay Kennedy in the Army of Love. And really, I think, in retrospect, they're probably mostly trolls, and it was probably really mostly the Army of Hate. But sometimes we need to keep up delusions just to keep moving, don't we? And I think, because you know what happened, when I just wanted to thank everyone, whatever, so I published the book, and then everybody ran away because nobody really wanted to be in the pages of the book. Because, trolls, they just want to come in, do their thing and piss off, and they don't want you to remember their name, and they don't want any, I've always, from shows that I've done, I always make sure that I credit everybody. If you've helped me, you'll get a credit. And, I've always had a thing about that, But it's funny, with the trolls, they don't want you to credit them because they're getting paid to come in and be your friend and help you with the show and then fuck it up at the end of it, right? They're getting paid for sabotage. So they don't want to be named, but I didn't realize this. So you could say, like, these two books, I sort of, in a way, I wrote in a total state of cluelessness, but they're quite a funny read because of that. And this one's Queensland, and Queensland just gives you the best stories. Like, the best stories I've ever collected are in Queensland. Queenslanders, I sort of love them, like, they just speak it how it is. And so they're quite truthful. So they give you really funny stories, And so, yeah, this one's sort of New York, Sydney. This one's Queensland. And, I'm thinking of, like, I want to make a little book of Mum's, like Gwenny's memory, like, with things that Mum said and her photos. And I want to make something. I just think it's so terrible how we are dehumanizing our elders, and we're not, treating them as a sacred, just, they're fonts of wisdom, So what if you can't remember this, or you can't remember that person's, yeah, so I want to make maybe another little book with my pocket book, and I'll sell that. But otherwise, donations would be fantastic. And thank you so much. Thank you so much to you, and thank you so much to friends who have really supported me and Mum so far. And I want to get a website up. I want to get all of this documentation. Like, I'm really inspired by your website. I'm inspired by heaps of things by you, but I love your website. I love the way you've kept track of everything. That was a lot of work.
Well, you know, I find that what you said about the trolls is very, very important. And I think you really put your finger on that sometimes, because they're playing both sides, they would come in as positive players and they would aim for you to put trust on them and rely on them, so that, you know, when you've put weight on that relationship, they want to pull that crutch away and make you fall. That's what I experienced over and over. So try to build something with these
Yeah,
people, you couldn't. They would just destroy it at a crucial moment. And I
yeah.
think it's brilliant what you have done with your with writing these diaries. I just would like to change my screen to show them to the viewers, because if they go to lulu.com, I encourage people. Sorry, I just have to find the window. Okay, so I encourage people to go to lulu.com, and in the search for Wednesday Kennedy, you will find both books, 21st Century Showgirl, here, actually in ebook format as well, and also in the paperback. I very much encourage people to get the paperback because it can't be hacked. Okay, it's really, that's why books are important. And then there's also the MySpace diaries here. And that is very important because it's also a historical document. And I think if you look at MySpace diaries, when you held it up, I had the impression you also showed screenshots from these messages. You can go back, and I think if they were trolls, there would be cartel signaling that maybe now you would recognize looking back.
Oh, that's it's so interesting. You know, it's very there is, and it's very interesting. And then the way how after it was published, everyone disappeared. It's like, but we were friends. Come back, come back. You know, but we weren't friends. You know, but you know, then to watch the same thing happen to Mum, like, you know, when she was stuck in there and I'm trying to find a lawyer or help, I'm knocking on doors, I'm going everywhere. Neighbours, church, parish priests, you know, nuns, like everyone who's supposed to help, right? And then Mum goes, do we have any friends? And I never lied to her. Because so many people lied to her, I never lied to her. My mother can take hard truths, right? She always could. And truth is the most important thing to my mother. So I just say to her, Mum, we don't have any friends. I just had to tell her, and she's like, oh no. And I went, but don't worry, we're going to make new friends. You know?
Exactly. That
Yeah.
reminds me of the message in the video where she said that your father and her were the friends to people who had no friends. And I think this is
Yes.
it goes to the core of
Be
what
friends with people who have no friends. Yes.
yeah. And I think what is very important for people to
Yes.
realize, that my
And you know, that
grandparents,
was a really.
yeah.
Say that
Sorry, your
again.
audio is delayed, which is why I sometimes cut you off. I said your audio is
Yeah.
delayed,
Tell me
which
what
is
you
why I
said.
by accident cut you off. So what I wanted to say
No,
is that
you
people need
didn't.
to
You're so
realize
polite.
that you know, my grandparents did something similar as your parents did, and I think they recognized something about society, which is that we actually, all of our parents and our grandparents lived with this global organized crime cartel. It has just become bigger and more powerful over the 20th century, and now in the 21st century, it has enough
Yes.
power to just attack us all globally simultaneously. But what, you know, your parents and my grandparents
Yes.
discovered is that you have to help the people with no friends, because there's a very, very important reason why these people have been thrown out of society or ejected and isolated. It's because they had something very important and very powerful about them. And at the end of the day, those are the good people, because what remains when you have this system churning and throwing out people and isolating them is that the good people end up on the outside. And then the situation where you're knocking at doors and you're talking to church and charity and human rights charities, and nobody is your friend, it is because the corrupt ones are the only ones left. And this crime cartel uses them to plant them systematically at exactly the sources of help you would want to contact. And eventually you realize that your neighbors and even your friends who you thought were friends are actually either too scared or too busy or just venal, and they can be bought off, right? And I think what is so important now is for all the people who have somehow been isolated and you know excluded from something or have been acid stripped and have been harmed, we all have to come together now, right? And what unites us all is that we all have been attacked by the very same crime cartel. You know, I wanted to make a couple of points. I wanted to first of all show people how they can follow you and support you. Just a moment. I would like to share my screen. And first of all, I would like to tell people that you've made a new Patreon site, and it's called, so you please go to patreon.com/stop elderly abuse in Australia. Please, because I think all of us, or those of the viewers who still have jobs or still have an you know, a normal life in inverted commas, you don't realize that, you know, $1 per month or $5 per month is literally the difference between life and death for somebody. And it is only thanks to my viewers who supported me financially that when your laptop was blown up, we immediately got
I know,
right. But it's not even
I know, I love
the
you.
viewers who donated.
I know.
And it was the viewers who donated who got you a new lock. And when you're in the heat of battle,
Thank you.
yeah, exactly. But we need people. We need people to put in $5, $10 per month. And the other thing I want to say is the reason why I should support Wednesday right now on elderly abuse is not even just because of Wednesday and her mother and the elderlies. It is because we are fighting everything. We are fighting these super tribunals that have cropped up all across the Australia. This is the Bannerman's lawyers who are saying NCAT, is it so super, right? And I am pointing out to you that what is changing in this super tribunal, so-called, is that you are not entitled to legal representation. You first must get the permission of NCAT to be represented by a lawyer. Have you ever heard of something like that? And they say this is a significant change in strata cases where the current law provides that parties in strata disputes may be represented by a lawyer as of right. Yes, of course. And that has been a legal tradition for thousands of years, or at least 1,000 years. So how come the NCAT right now crops up all across Australia and is following exactly the Nazi model? Well, that's because you are all to be exterminated following a Nazi model. And I also want people to understand furthermore that it's not just about elderly people, because you reported that the police did not help you. Well, ladies and gentlemen, this is the New South Wales Police Assistant Commissioner. And the most prominent thing, I remind you all, is the Masonic tiling on his cap. He's a member of the Masonic crime cartel. So now, if you're stopped by a highway patrol, you just have to look at the car to know that this is the Masons grabbing you, frisking you, and arresting you. Okay?
But there's got to be some good ones, right? Like, there's got to be some goodies. Because if they're all gone, like, I've got to believe that there's some good ones who can investigate this.
The thing is this. Well, from systems analysis, I can tell you the following. The one who is at the very top will be a 33-degree Mason. He will know exactly what's going on, and he will be a problem. Now, the thing is, when you get down to the street level and you get this guy with instructions from the top Mason, he might not be a Mason, he might be clueless, but when he's doing this, arresting somebody, he needs to know a few things. Number one, you need to say, officer, what the fuck does Masonic tiling do on your car and on your cap? Because every single one of these have these caps. If you look carefully, they all have the Masonic tiling. Now, you have to say, officer, what the fuck is this on your head? And do you even know what that means? The next thing you need to know, as he is like, you know, frisking you, is you have to say, officer, did you know that you as a police officer will have been chipped and you have a chip in your neck? In fact, you probably have eye implants. Right? Good news. Buy a UV torch for 10
They send me off to the Green Eagle. I start asking him that.
Exactly. Now, the other thing that people need to know is that when this police officer buys himself a 10 UV, $10, you know, ultraviolet torch and sees that his pupils are fluorescent green from a layer just behind his pupil, which is not his lens. When he sees that fluorescent green and he knows that they have already put the camera, right? They don't just put cameras on your vest, you idiots. That's just the cover that they have already put implants in your eyes. If you don't believe me, please buy yourself a torch. Now you have to understand that this Nazi bullcrap and the Nazi bullcrap of these NCAT super duper tribunals, where you're not allowed to for lawyer, and the incarceration of Gwen Kennedy go hand in hand. So if anybody asks me, why should I support Wednesday if I'm not in Australia, if I don't have elderly parents, I'm perfectly healthy, or maybe I'm in Australia and I actually have young kids and a job, and I don't see why I should care about elderly care when I don't even care about my pension, I tell you why. Because the connection is the super tribunal that will enforce that you have your children chipped, and your children will be chipped just like the police officers are already chipped today. Okay? Yeah. That's what I want to understand. You support Wednesday Kennedy and Gwen Kennedy now if you don't want your children to be chipped. You support Gwen Kennedy and Wednesday Kennedy now, today, if you don't want to be arrested Nazi style, or if you don't want to end up in exactly the same situation like you did Wednesday, which is that you have some psychopath kicking your door down, stealing your documents from your home, then trying to break in, and when you confront him, he tells you, your own brother tells you, I'm gonna chop you up, I'm gonna slit your throat and chop you up. And when you report him, the police doesn't give a shit. The police then also lied and said, oh, we can't find him. How the fuck can you not find a person who's got a registered address in Australia? How the fuck does that work? Because Australia is under super surveillance.
And you know what else I think? I know. And, you know, it's like they blow up my computer, so then I've got to take my computer to the police. So, of course, the police have been through all my computer. So it's like, you know, it's like showing them everything, right? You know, so, but why am I open to this, you know, having to show everything when I'm not the criminal? Why don't they go to their computers and be emptying their, you know? But of course, my computer's been blown up, and so I have to hand it over. But you know, it's another level of humiliation, right?
That's exactly it is.
You know, just another level of humiliation. Like when they said to me, you know, like the officers actually I've been dealing with have been quite sweet. Actually, you know,
well, but
I can't say I've had a.
But wait a second.
I can't say anything bad about it.
Well, wait a second, though, right? Okay, the officers were sweet, but you know why they're sweet? Because they probably, if you've seen your videos, right? They have researched you a bit because they found you on YouTube when they just have to put your name into YouTube or Google, right? Every idiot police officer can do that. Now, the reason why they're sweet is because they're not morons. And they know that some really big storm is brewing, and they're trying to cover their own ass. But at the end of the day, your taxpayers' money doesn't go into putting sweet, handsome New South Wales, you know, lads.
Yeah, but maybe they can be heroes. Catherine, I want to encourage them to be heroes, because I'm sort of with Russell Brand on this. Like, we've got to encourage the cops, because really, they sort of, you know, the lawyers, the judges, that's a field of Elysium. They're fucking up there, right? The cops, if we can get them to be good, they are our only hope, because they got the nose, right? That's why they call them dogs. But what's dogs? Dogs is a man's best friend. Dogs can sniff out. Even you call them pigs. Pigs are very clever. They can sniff out truffles, right? Like, you know, like, I mean, the qualities.
Well, you know what?
The qualities, like, we need those qualities. We need the blokes, right, with some balls, with some muscle, with some heart. I prefer them to have more like brain but heart, like some heart, you know. And them sniffing, saving grandma, not saving Catholic health care. Right? Not saving the public guardian. The public guardian's got the cops like puppies on a short leash. No, not your puppy, Sylvia Heidenreich. Our dog. We're supposed to be sniffing you out. You know what I mean? So I want to encourage the police to be the best men that they are, right? And I want look, we've got to change the system, because they're the bottom of the hierarchy in terms of the justice system, right? And they're front, and they've sort of got to take orders. But you know what? If more and more cops came up and went, no, I'm not doing this. I'm not going to take grandma back to whatever, or, you know, I don't know. I think, okay, this is just where I am at the moment. I've got more hope with cops than I do with judges or lawyers. And I also feel like if those cops can come through and honestly haven't given them enough for criminal charges, then I could get a criminal lawyer. Now, I got a hunch. The criminal lawyers are perhaps the only honest ones. Those civil lawyers, they're all fucking Ken dolls. They're all bloody soft cocks who just want to fleece the vulnerable. But the criminal lawyers, you know, I don't know. I got a good feeling about criminal lawyers. So we'll see, won't we? I mean, it's all an exploration, right? Isn't it?
Well, it is. And I
You know.
basically what we're doing here is we're playing good cop, bad cop. And I for sure as fuck will be the bad cop here, right? Because I hear what you're saying, right? What I'm saying is basically this.
I know, so cute.
Wait, let me do my bad cop routine, because I'm going somewhere with this. So you heard the good cop now, right? You know what to do. Now here comes the bad cop, okay? Because what I want to say is we're not paying these people to be sweet to us. They are sweet. So far, I only believe that they're sweet because they know that they're in deep shit. And then they can be like, you know, candy floss. But what I want to say is that you are not paid to be sweet. You're paid to do your fucking job. So I'm going to stop being bad cop when these guys start to investigate. There's a hack to investigate, right? There are fingerprints on that USB stick. By the way, the whole thing was sent by registered post through an express delivery, so they know who sent it. It is physically impossible anywhere in the world to send packages without the postal service being able to track it and domestic intelligence being able to track it. That's the first thing they put in place as anti-terrorism, as they marketed it, but actually for surveillance. So our local physical post is the most surveyed thing on the planet. It has been surveyed in the times of pharaohs, let alone now with these express services. So they know who sent it. Okay, now here comes the twist. I understand that when you get to the assistant commissioner, you're dealing with one badass criminal as fuck, most likely kitty fucking control file, you know, pedophile Nazi fucker. That's my null hypothesis here, right? That's my basic assumption. I understand that. And I also understand that on the lowest level, you know, when you have frontline cops, you're dealing with family dads who just don't know what the hell to do to keep their job. I understand that. And what I'm giving you guys is the get out clause. You just have to be clever enough to get it, okay? What I'm saying to you is what I just said. You are all implanted. And I'm saying that because I've measured so many journalists. I know that judges are chipped, and I know exactly why. And I know why you will have eye chips, because they want to see what you're seeing, even when you switch the camera off or take off your vest, okay? Now, here's the trick. If Croydon, New South Wales police buy themselves a $10 UV torch, okay, here's the trick. What you do is you buy yourself this lamp, and then if your eyes light up green like mine, you have an eye implant. And what you do is you have the same $10 fucking torch. You measure the entire station. And when you finally have understood that you've all been fucked over by the Crown Corporation, being a crown colony and a concentration camp out in the back of beyond, where no one gives a shit about you, when you've got that into your thick police skull, you go to your union. Do you understand? Because the only way to fight this is if the police put on their own pressure in the system. And I'm telling you, if you as a cop have these eye implants, I bet you your wife has them. And then you can buy yourself a bug detector and check your kids, because this is what I'm working on right now. There are certain frontline professions who have been implanted 100%. And these are journalists, because of course the cartel wants to know what the next story is, right? Before the journalist even writes the article. And you do that by putting an eye implant in somebody. The other high risk profession is police officers, for exactly the same reason. Then it's judges, right? And politicians and bankers. So these people I expect to be implanted 100%. 100%. Now, here's the trick, okay? The trick is you find the implants and you start kicking off a big fat stink, because what the public guardian wants from their puppies on the short leash, which is the New South Wales Police, and that's what the, you know, assistant commissioner who's done jack shit wants from you guys, is for you to shut the hell up, to abuse Wednesday and Gwen, ensure that you drag off Gwen and drag her back into the internment camp, as you know, like a bunch of Gestapo morons. And then they want you to shut the F up as your children are being trafficked into neuroexperimentation experiments. That's the trick. That's what connects Gwen. She's already being experimented on, Wednesday fears. And your children,
I hear you.
you know, you all have to be, you have to understand the entirety of Australia to be now, you all have to stand together, because the indigenous people were asset stripped like this. You know, now Gwen is asset stripped like this, and you will all be asset stripped, and you will not be able to prevent the continued brain experimentation on your children. You already couldn't prevent the brain chipping of your children, I'm pretty sure. And what's going to fuck you over will be the NCAT Tribunal. This network of the Masons you're all supporting. So what I'm saying to all of them, right, is you get behind Wednesday now. If you're a police officer, you fucking investigate and do your job that only you know how to do, right? And there should be a police procedure what to do when your boss has been bought by organized crime. There has to be a template for this. You have to get it out of the drawer and activate that, because that's what we're dealing with. And then, you know, please get yourself new uniforms and repaint those fucking cars to show us that you have Sonic.
I love you.
I'm not trusting anyone.
You're great. You're the best.
I mean, it's
007. I'm going to write a musical about you. Dr. Catherine Hood.
Well, no, it's true. And you know, the other thing is, one of the things I said to
007. I'll be such a great musical.
Well, what I've just said to Wednesday before we got on the show is that now the dam is breaking. I've predicted that, because I am, you know, very good with systems analysis, and I said the dam's going to break, and those people will be lucky who are out the door first. Okay, and I said that about absolutely everybody, but I can already tell that the journalists are cracking. So Sputnik News got me a mainstream interview that they wanted to slip in fast, because I had them on the hook for, you know, tanking my other interview and making it disappear. But now ITV News pulled out, you know, and out of the cartel, and they put on, I was just sent this today, they put on a movie about gang stalking, a documentary, and it's totally honest, and it's for once not about the mental health of the victim, it's about the mental health and the psychopathy of the fucking gang stalkers. And what that means is, when a mainstream news channel starts reporting, is the dam is broken. And they are now running for the hills. They don't want to be in the court case. They don't want to, the editors don't want to have to answer, you know, charges of covering up crimes against humanity and mass murder. And if New South Wales have their wits together, they will think, oh my God, we're the lucky ones, because we do have this case. We can flip. There's a public reason for us to flip. We can say to our bosses, look, it's all over YouTube. It's going now all the way to the US, back to England, right? We can't pull this. We're pulling out. We are not going to go along with the corruption anymore. So you have to take the pressure that you're getting, and you have to flip in time to be one of the lucky ones. If you do not fucking investigate this case, you will go down with the rest of them, and I will personally make sure that you will be dragged through the gutter, and you will never recover it ever again. But I mean it. And I'm doing it right now, because the court cases are going.
I love you. You're great, man. I love you. Yeah.
Well, this is what you need, right?
Yeah, I love you. You like
the only way to get Gwen out, if frankly, is if you have baying crowds in front of the Supreme Court next time. But those baying crowds have to.
I know. It's so hard to get a crowd. It's like someone put Prozac in the fucking drinking water. Like, what the fuck? People don't give a shit, man. You know, like, I've got my trusty advocate, but honestly, trying to build, look, you know, I'm an old showgirl, so I'm sort of skilled in, how do we get how do we fill the room? We've got to write the press release. We've got to whatever, like I'm skilled at this stuff. I have no clue. You know what I mean? It's like, grandma is the most unfashionable issue. It's so weird. It's like people are just in total denial that they'll be next. You know what I mean? Like, honestly, like we're all going to, anyway, look, we do what we do, don't we? It's like every day I'm in more and more pain. I'm actually in a sort of, it's a sort of permanent emotional just trauma. I feel tortured like all the time, right? Because I have not been allowed to give my mother freedom from pain and humiliation. And I haven't, but what can I do? It's my mother. I just have to keep going, right? But the pain is, the pain, like they know what they're doing. There's no touch torture. They are torturing me, and but it's nothing to the torture that she's been put through. And yeah, it's the same thing with my brother. Now, if he could do this to my mother, and I believe he is being paid by this Five Eye, corporation, whatever.
Yeah.
Will be your mother next, and your mother, and your mother, and your mother, because you think if he can do this to the woman who rescued him from an orphanage, he's going to give a damn about your mother, the woman who put him through private school to give him a leg up. Well, what did that do? That just put him in with the private school pedophilia network, didn't it? The satanic network, right? They should have sent him to Homebush Boys High, He'd be a much nicer guy and probably happier. But anyway, live and learn, right? What I know about my parents, incredibly, like, just good people who really try to do the right thing by everyone, Anyway, that must be our alarm clock. Where are we now? We're at 11:09, baby cakes. I'm talking to you. And can we do this again?
Absolutely. What I wanted to propose is actually that we do this weekly, all the way up leading to the Supreme Court case, because you have a massive case, and I want people to be able to follow this, because we also know that there are many more elderly abuse cases in Australia. It's because I'm predicting that they will come with the vaccine courts down on Australia, and the procedure to get out of this is identical. It doesn't matter if it's elderly abuse or the vaccine, the program is the same. And, we really can show people what they can do. What they can do right now, because you do need the finances to even, try to hope to get a lawyer and try to get your case up. You need financial support, because they're also trying to get the house out from under you. So what I really want people to do today is, number one, below here in the description is the Butterfly Girls video that Wednesday made of her mother, Gwen. If you click on that, you will get through to Wednesday's channel, and I ask you to subscribe and click on the bell, because then you will be shown updates. So when she's putting out new videos, it is super important you do that, please. So first, subscribe to Wednesday's channel, click the alarm bell, and then also please go to patreon.com/, I'll show you the page here right now. This is super important for this phase right now, because we are in the phase where we have to fund the court case that can shut this down. Please go to patreon.com/ Stop Elder Abuse in Australia, all one word, Stop Elder Abuse in Australia. And please become a patron, please, 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 because it is really like that. So for every individual person, it is a small sum, okay? $5 per month is absolutely nothing. But if every person who's watching this video gave $5 or $1 per month, Wednesday could really take this to the newest levels. And you have to support the people who are fighting this now, because these are the battle lines. With every person they take, they legitimize a system of super tribunals that will be used to pull through horrific stuff that you can't even imagine. Okay, so you have to fight it at the battle lines. If you fight it by the time this crime cartel is knocking at your door to, get you carted off by New South Wales Masonic, prison vans, then it's too late. Then you can't do anything. You have to fight the battle lines when they are, enough a distance away from your home. And there is a certain thing that you can do.
Yeah.
So, and I also want to say that there is success because it was only because of the people who supported me that allowed me to help Wednesday. And the only reason why she could continue
That's true.
USB stick was because people had donated in the past. That's the only reason we could do that. If we didn't have those people, we would have been fucked. So it does matter. And
totally.
You don't have to donate $500 to make it worthwhile, because there's so many of you listening. There's so many of you who also have their problems. But the other thing I want to say is, if you want us to help you with your problems next time, we have to succeed in this stage now. Otherwise, there will be nobody left. And you have to support the people who have gone through it, because they understand the tricks of the system and how the system works and what needs to be fought. So please get on the case now. So subscribe to Wednesday and get the bell so that you can keep in touch with this case, because it's not going to go away, and it will affect you by a mechanism we cannot even predict today. They'll use a backdoor to get you into the NCAT one way or another. And the other thing I want to say is, remember that they have weaponized cars out on the street everywhere in the Western world. They can shoot at you with directed energy weapons and make you into a care case within a second. So the other thing to watch out for, it's not just elderly care, it's also the care of patients who can't take care of themselves. And the typical thing that they do with the directed energy weapons is heart attacks and strokes. So every healthy person, even young people, are a potential target for asset stripping. If you own your own business, you are the prime asset, because if you get shot in the head by a DU, you will literally become a vegetable in a hospital somewhere, and people can asset strip your funds. It will not go to your family or your children. They use the NCAT mechanism to first give it to a government lawyer, so-called, and then pass it to this crime cartel who is on the other side of that facade. That is what's being done. So please, please, please support Wednesday now. And we will be coming back next week with the next update, because we are now, getting the case up back into.
Thank you. You rock. Thank you so much. And thank you to your people too, because it is it's it's so isolating. The whole experience is just so isolating. It's so terrible, but I am so grateful. I'm just so grateful, and wow. And I think you're a powerhouse, and I love your videos, and thanks for everything, and thanks for the deadlock, and thanks for the computer, and you know what? If my mother met you, she would want to adopt you immediately.
Well, I'm not sure if my parents give me out for adoption, but you never know. You never know in this crazy world. But what's important to realize is that I would be nowhere if there weren't so many viewers, because the intelligence agencies are watching the viewers, and how many there are, and that's why they keep manipulating the viewership numbers. The first thing that they took off the broadcasting software is for me to be able to see how many are watching live. So what I now do is, I realized how the viewership has rocketed up, because I would finish a video and there would be 600 views. Literally, as soon as I finished, I was like, wow, where did they come from, right? And it's because it's not even me doing it. It is us doing it. And you realize that you vote with your feet. You vote when you watch a YouTube video, and you're like, I don't give a fuck about surveillance. I will watch the video because I know it's important for my survival. And what actually happens is that you scare these motherfuckers off, because they are scared of the crowd. Remember, these are butt-fuck little, public school boys who were, they needed a gang to feel strong. Right? So when they see a massive baying crowd, they shit themselves. And it doesn't matter how strong their Mossad-trained bodyguards are. These, little boys will feel very small, and they chicken out. And the other thing I want people to understand is, everything you do matters. It matters already in life, but it matters even more in a highly monitored system, because they realize your vote. They realize your intent. Surveillance can be turned around. It can be used against them. When they know everything, they get very, very scared, right? Very easily when they can see the numbers. And already just with my YouTube, they saw the numbers enough to modify the software, you know, and I want you to understand that you can get these people to crack very easily. I single-handedly got Sputnik News to crack, right? ITV News has just cracked, right? They fucking cracked. And what for them, what that means is they have flopped out of the cartel.
I know, but you're not Catherine Horton. I'm just Wednesday Kennedy. I can't make anyone crack. They make me crack.
Well, the thing is,
but you know, like I appreciate what you're saying. I appreciate the inspiration, like I do.
No.
But I just,
wait. You know, you already like, you know, you already
feel very strong.
message. It's not true that you can't make them crack. You have made them crack, and that's why they took your YouTube videos off. This, you have made them crack. But all I'm trying to say now is now we have the next stage.
Yeah.
Where you have more supporters than you ever had. And there will be more supporters coming forward, because I am sorry, as soon as the, you know, police gets themselves a UV torch, actually they should have one with them, by the way, you know, they should have one on them anyway. Just turn it on your pupils and see if they light up green. As soon as they get that into your head, I think that's the point when every self-respecting Australian man says, okay, enough is enough. When it's about their own body, they will say enough is enough. So I predict that you will have more supporters than ever imagined, right? Okay, so here we are. We will be back next week. Now, Wednesday, what are your parting words at the end of the show? What's your final message to the viewers?
Oh, great. Thanks for everything. Oh, look, you know, if worse comes to worse, wear an Elvis wig. Well, you know what? You've got to laugh. I got this Elvis wig to sneak into the nursing home thinking, oh, if I garage sale, I thought, oh, you know, maybe if I put this on, like, they won't notice me, you know. It always looks better in the box than it does on my head. So anyway, but look, I'm just grateful to you. Everything's terrible. I've got a bit of gallows humours left, but you know, my mum was always into gallows humours. You know, the black humour. You've got to keep laughing. You've got to, like, they want to strip everything from you, even the gallows humour. You know, so I think you know, anyway, you inspire me, and thanks for everything, like everything, especially the deadlock in the computer, but everything else as well. And I don't know. I love your videos. I don't even say. I'm beat, but except thank you for everything, and thank you to your people. Thank you to who's watching, because yeah, it's terrible. It's a terrible war, and you know, we've got to keep going, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. And also at this point, I would like personally thank the person who went to the court hearing. You know, having one observer, independent observer alone is making a huge difference. It really is. I mean, it, you know, it made a huge difference to you, Wednesday, to see that somebody is there.
And he was terrific. What a great guy.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a big deal. Yeah, and we were all so excited. How'd you come here? Dr. Catherine Horton. Dr. Catherine Horton! Like, we were so excited, you know? So, yeah, honey, like, you know, impact, but it just goes to show 10,000 views to get one person. They're the statistics we're working with, but that's cool.
Well, like, because I've only now discovering Australia, right, for the first time, because my viewers are mostly in the US, so, you know, a continent away, US and England. So I'm already really pleased that, you know, one Australian came, and I'm pretty sure that now the news is going to spread. And remember, the only support that we really have are those from the viewers, but that is what is changing the world. So remember, guys who are watching, everything you do is a vote. Forget your government votes, because that's only once every 4 to 5 years. But everything you do is a vote. If you watch something, if you forward something on social media, if you turn up to a court case, that is a vote, and it will be noticed. And the other thing that the authorities know is that there is always a dark number, and they understand how big the dark number is much better than us. So they know if one person turns up, there are 100 people who would have been here right? Had it been maybe longer notice, or if they managed to get the day
Oh,
off.
look, especially a place like that. Like, nobody wants to go there. And it's in a terrible part of town. You've got to go, it's like going through the airport. You've got to be totally, have all your stuff x-rayed to get through. And then you've got to go up the tower. It's awful. Like, really, it takes commitment for people to actually go through that. So, all my friends who turned up, and Dr. Catherine Horton who turned up, I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful to all of you, like, deeply, and you too. And good night, because Grandma's going to bed now. It's 11:22.
Absolutely. So our goal is to have a playing
Go to
crowd
bed.
you're going into the court. So thank you very, very much for everybody, and we will be back next week with more details and a progress report. So thank you very much for now, and also thanks for Wednesday for reporting about her case, and bye for now, and see you soon.
Thank you for having me.